It could end up being the wise guy's horse, and I'd be very proud to call you the original wise guy.
Well, I'd be the first time I've ever been called that. Hello and welcome back to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV. What a weekend it was, and what a day at Cheltenham on Saturday. Honestly, it was one of my favourite ever days.
Oh, it was right up there, that's for sure. Plenty of Let's Talk Racing followers there, which was absolutely brilliant. Great to meet everyone that was there. I must say, I have got to tip my imaginary cap to you, Josh, as well. You had an absolute beano. I was lucky enough that I joined you in on a couple of them, but you nearly went through the card.
No, it was good. It was good. Comfort Zone won the first. That's right, Gino each way in the second at 11-1. He placed. We then had back on the lash. We then didn't touch the champion chase. Il Ridotto won the 2.5 mile handicap chase. Lost on Protectorate.
Yep.
Lost on Dashel Drasher.
Only just.
Rock My Way won, which was good.
Very good.
And then lost in the last. But yeah, one of my better days at Cheltenham that I've ever had. So it was brilliant. But the whole day was just magic. And thank you ever so much for everyone that came and said hello. It was a pleasure meeting you all, and really got me pumped for the festival.
Oh, very much so. Like, it's just that feeling, like when you were walking in at 11 a.m.
It was just magic.
It was absolutely magic. People are steaming in already, and it just felt, I think we've been on the same train in terms of some of the jump season seems to have ever so slightly been ambling along. We've been waiting for something to ignite it. I felt Saturday was an igniting day. Not necessarily that we're going to see tremendous amounts of winners from the card on Saturday, maybe at March, but it just felt like the season really needed that day.
Big time. And this is episode 5 of the Cheltenham Ante Post series, and we're going to be effectively reviewing the last week in racing, and there's plenty to get through. So if you're not keen on hearing our thoughts on those races, then do skip to the end. But if you are, then thank you very much. And if you do like this video, we've absolutely smashed numbers out the park over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think we've hit 700 likes on 3 or 4 videos, 800 on one. If we could hit 800 again on this, that would be absolutely magic. And we cannot wait to do a full Dublin Racing Festival preview, which will come to you on Thursday morning. Cannot wait for that, and I'm sure you're looking forward to going over.
Yeah, can't wait. Over there in a working capacity for the first time, which would be something a little bit different, but it would be nice to get home for a few days afterwards as well with the folks, which is absolutely lovely, and it would be great to see Dad up at the race course. I'm sure he's looking forward to it as well, and I must say I'm more looking forward to the DRF live stream that's going to be on LTR Plus on Friday evening, because I think the people that are in the know will know that last Friday night was quite extraordinary.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. And we'll actually insert a few clips here. We have been to the pub, which could make this more entertaining. We're going through the comments. TDA183, his name's Trevor. Should have seen that coming.
What is going on over here? We can't go down to our local pub and get a beer for less than £7.
So as Palace, have you ever one of them?
And us pals.
I'm going to go Comfort Zone. Rob James is at a very... Rob James.
We've got a shambles. So, for context, we've had a car crash here. I'm going to rock up tomorrow, and I'm going to back Henry II, because I think his form will be advertised in the River Don. I don't think Maximilian is a certainty to win, but I think he's near on a certain to be in the first 3.
Yeah, he might finish third, 25 lengths behind Stay Away Faye.
You go away. Like, Stay Away Faye, another Nichols horse that you've got an absolute job's worth. You're making it out like the others have actually achieved anything.
You just said you'd back the Twist and Davis horse. Rock My Way on debut and the rules finished 23 lengths clear of the third.
This is absolute.
And was beaten a length and a quarter.
It's absolute. It's absolute. You clearly told me that Maximilian gets beat by Man at Work. Man at Work was one of the very few horses that Maximilian absolutely trounced, because he's still running around Sandown. I wouldn't say the race had finished 3 seconds, and you put up that tweet with Henry II. You're as inevitable as me putting up the photo with no risk day flow. I'm just stating the facts that you
just make it up as you go along.
No, you tell me that you're Henry II's biggest fan.
I don't think you've ever backed the horse.
I was stood next to the owner as he got pulled up at Aintree.
Geez, Bono told me not to name drop at the same stage. What are you going on about?
Right,
I was standing beside the owner. You're having me on here. What's the forfeit for yourself? The chat maybe can understand. If Maximilian wins the River Don, imagine he beats Stay Away Faye in a photo.
So between us, if Maximilian wins the River Don, what will I do as a forfeit? The first 10 people to reply in the comments, I'll send 10 quid to.
That was an interesting one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we just had to get ourselves hyped, and we did so. And I think there was 10 people that go collected in the end from some of your outrageous shouts. You got everything right at Cheltenham. You didn't get the River Don right.
No, I didn't. Maximilian cost me 100 quid, but look, it happens. But those 10 people that were watching the stream and they commented when we said the first 10 people who commented would get £10 if Maximilian won. Well, there you go. We'll have to sort that out in the next week or two. But if you do enjoy this video, please do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we want to hear your thoughts. How did you dissect the last week in racing? Trials Day was very informative. We want to know your thoughts. Do get them down below in the comments. But let's kick on with things, because plenty to talk about. We won't go to Cheltenham first. We'll go to Gorham Park, where we saw Tiupu step up to 3 miles for the first time in his career after beating Classical Dream and Honeysuckle in the Hatton's Grace. I think at the start, people were hoping to have a Stayers Hurdle possible favourite after this, and we got one.
Yeah, no, he was very impressive, Josh. Very hard not to be, especially on that type of ground as well at Gorham Park. Now, I suppose there's been worse ground on Thyestes Day before, but it's usually soft. He's stayed very well, very impressive. It's not much of a race in behind. I don't think that you could make much of that form, but I suppose from what we learned in the Cleve Hurdle a few days later, the Stayers Hurdle division is slightly falling apart, and this looks a pretty robust favourite. You'd have to have a little bit of a concern that he went to Cheltenham last year, a champion hurdle, and ran no type of race. But at the same stage, that's 2 miles, this is 3 miles. And I think, not dissimilar to Jerry Colombe, if there's any type of cut in this, in the ground, I see him hard to be beaten.
Yeah, the Stayers Hurdle division is wide open. I'm sure we will get onto the Cleve. I don't know. I'm still not sure about that race whatsoever at Cheltenham. It's just very, very, very confusing. One horse that was also very confusing was Sir Gerhard this season. I thought he was possibly out. I fancied him for the Arkle at the very start. And he won over 2 miles on chasing debut. And yet Willie pretty much was leaning towards the Brown Advisory, the 3 mile race.
Yeah, it was a very interesting interview, actually, and I think you make a very good point with Willie Mullen. Sometimes he goes around the houses with how many potential races these horses could run in, but it's usually the first that pops into his mind that is more so on the money than anything, and that was the race that he was talking about. I must say I was thoroughly unimpressed, and he's a horse that I really like, and he's done me plenty of good turns, but I thought his jumping was careful. He obviously made a bad mistake at the first time round. I think that knocked his confidence a bit. He was impressive in the end, but he's beaten Largy Debut, who unfortunately has turned into a bit of a bust. And the other horse was around 2 furlongs behind, so I don't know how much you can bring from that. I'd think, to really fancy him for Cheltenham, you'd want to see him in between. I don't think you're going to get that time to see it.
No, it's going to be tricky. I've got 2 very different views. One view was straight after the race, which I was very disappointed, like you. And then when they mentioned 3 miles, I thought, the race is so open. I was looking at Sir Gerhard when he made his chasing debut, hoping for an Arkle horse. We definitely didn't get that.
No.
But then you think, would he stay? Probably. He's won a 3 mile points of points on the Ballymore last year. He never looked like he'd stop at the line. And the race is so open, so it's really tricky. If he runs there, it'd be very interesting. It's just one I'm going to have to watch the race develop and see how and who lines up. We'll go to Cheltenham on Saturday, and Comfort Zone beat Scriptwriter in a thrilling finish. I actually thought that if John Joe had it again, I know he won, he'd have probably been maybe slightly closer or maybe slightly wider. I think the horse potentially got him out of trouble a little bit. I think if Paddy Brennan had it again, he'd probably do things differently as well.
Yeah, I think they were by far the two best horses in the race. I said it to you and Dan Overall, who was with us at the races, as was Jake Price. And I said before, I think if these horses ran against each other 6 times, it would probably be 3-3 between the two of them. And I don't necessarily disagree with that after the race. I think Paddy Brennan was disappointed. I know Milton Harris, by the look of him, in the parade ring afterwards, was very disappointed that he'd obviously got to the front plenty soon enough on script writer, and he kind of pulled himself up. At the same stage, Comfort Zone went by him and he slightly pulled himself up. So hard to know. I think there's probably very little between the two of them. I don't think either of them are a Triumph Hurdle winner. I think the way both of them are likely to be ridden in a Triumph Hurdle, though, there's every possibility one of them could fill the frame.
I agree. I would probably have Comfort Zone as the 4th best juvenile that I've seen this season. And he could definitely have one of those top 3 in Lottymouth. Gala, I think she'll come on as well. And the other one would be Blood Destiny. Yeah. So I think that if one of them was to not run their race, I think Comfort Zone could definitely be competitive. I don't think that with scriptwriter. I think
it depends on the ground. I think if you turned up on the Friday at 1 o'clock and it was relatively decent ground and they ride him absolutely stone cold, I could see him running into the frame.
I actually think it was a very good race. Even Active Duty, who finished 4th for Ben Pauling, I think he's a juvenile to keep on the right side of. The following race was the 2.5 mile Novices Handicap Chasing Stage Style 1, and I made a big case for That's All Right Gino on the preview video, and approaching 2 out, I thought, here we go, he's picking up, and I just don't think he jumps particularly well under pressure. And the first time up, I felt a bit sorry for myself, as you would, and then I watched the race back and focused on Stage Star, and Cobden had so much in hand, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was one of those that was actually probably staring you straight in the eye, and both of us blinked.
I know, but you think, I know, shallow hurdle winner off 142 in a handicap.
Yeah, it was just one of those, like we were talking to a few people on the train up, and there was a few cases to be made for Stage Star, and I was there going, yeah, I don't know, I was a little bit underwhelmed with him 2 starts back. I wasn't even particularly taken by him at Plumpton last time in a 2-runner race at near on 10s on, but he jumped so well, he had so much in hand, really, and he's probably one of these horses, he was the graded horse in that race against, That's All Right Gino will pick up a decent handicap at some stage, but he probably does need to clean up his jumping a little bit. I know there's a few in behind that were maybe eye catchers, but they're only handicappers at the end of the day. As for Stage Star, does have that back class and that potential future class to land graded contests in the future.
Yeah, where do you go with him next? I think they will stick at 2.5. I think they'll go to the Turners. He reminds me an awful lot of a horse that Nichols had called Irish Saint, who was of plenty of ability on his day, could put it all together. But at Cheltenham, I think he ran against the good ones in Vautour, in the JLT, and possibly again in the Ryanair, just never up to that level. I think Stage Star is more of that. I don't personally couldn't fancy him for any race at Cheltenham, even though he was impressive. I just think if I owned him, I may have kept him off that mark and ran in the plate and given it a good go.
Yeah, hard to know though, because he was a pretty inexperienced horse over fences. So if you just threw him into the plate in his first handicap, you wouldn't know, in a 20 runner race against maybe 3 or 4 Irish nags, how well handicapped he'd have been. If he was mine at this stage, I know people love going to Cheltenham, and you can't begrudge somebody telling you Stage Star will run in the Turners. If he was personally mine, I'd leave Cheltenham and I'd have a right crack at the manifesto, and I think it's a grade 1 he actually could win.
The eye-catching horse was Unexpected Party, who finished 3rd. Not sure he was ever put in the race. I think they have a big target in mind for him. Not sure what that is, but if it was the plate at the festival, I think he'd be an interesting one to keep on the right side of. He's got lots of form. Dan and Harry thought an awful lot of him, and he's been bumping into good ones. So he's just very, very interesting. I'm definitely keeping a good eye on him. Back on the last one, the cross country, but I think the talking point with regard to the festival was Delta Work. He finished 3rd and ran a mighty race.
Ran a super race, yeah. Jumped pretty well in the main. I think he made a bit of a fluff of 2 out, and that maybe stunted any chance of winning, but you'd have to be very impressed with him. Back on the lash, it was his day. You identified it beautifully with getting that handicap allowance, and also a horse that's never going to win the proper thing in March, and good on Martin Keatley for seizing that opportunity. I know it was a horse that I advertised to back each way, and he just about filled the frame. I was very impressed by Mortal. I know Gordon may have won, maybe even 2 more that are going to be better than him in the cross country, but it wouldn't surprise me if he goes off a mad price for the cross country and again fills the frame. I think he's that type of horse, and you'll constantly get 20 to 1 plus on him.
Delta Work obviously was giving the winner £23 and only lost by 4 lengths. So you'd imagine that he's going to reverse that form very comfortably. I think that right now, looking at the obvious ones in the race, he's going to win it comfortably. That being said, I think Galvin's going to run here. I think the yard are going to aim Galvin towards the cross country. He's not schooled yet, but I think he's going to do that this week, and then this will be a prep for the Grand National. He would be an interesting one. He's got Grade 1 winning over fences.
Yeah, very much so. Very similar profile, I suppose, to Delta Work going into the race last year. If you're taking the riding arrangements being the way they are, does Davy Russell stay with Galvin, the Ronnie Bartlett connection, or does he be on Delta Work? Because I don't believe Jack Kennedy's going to be back, so Davy's going to have the pick of the two.
I wonder. I think that he might go with Galvin. I think they'll probably keep Rob James on Delta Work. That's not saying that Galvin's first string. I just think that might be how it works.
I think he's got such an affiliation with Ronnie Bartlett that may well be the case. I wouldn't be sure maybe whether it be Rob James. I think they might get a Gainford or Sam Ewing maybe on him. They might keep Sam Ewing on Mortal. Maybe Jordan Gainford might come in for a plum ride on Delta Work, or Galvin for that matter.
Yeah, would be very, very interesting. I still would probably back Delta Work over Galvin. Looking at the Clarence House, I don't think anyone saw this coming. Editor de Gite, we were on the train up there with the owners, and you felt like having a charity £5 on him just because they're in fine spirits in the morning. Energamine finished 3rd. Edwardstone, I think Tom Cannon would have loved to have this again. Even just being 2 or 3 lengths closer to the pace, I think he'd have much, much benefited from it, and I think he would have won.
Yeah, potentially so. I think, to be fair, Tom Cannon's maybe gotten a few pelters for it. I don't think the horse jumped quite fluently enough. Just watching the race back around 20 minutes before we came on, those first 4 or 5 fences in a line that maybe put him that length or 2 further back than he wanted to be. Maybe just a little bit of scar tissue of that fall at Kempton, which was unlike him. He's usually a good jumper, and maybe he had to make a lot of ground. I was disappointed by the race in general. Nothing against Editor de Gite, but obviously you go there, you're hoping to see a big performance from Energamine. I was hoping that he might win 10 lengths, to be honest, and he was awfully flat and disappointed. Didn't jump with much fluency.
How do you assess that?
Well, I don't know. Obviously, there's this whole hullabaloo about the white fences. I don't buy that for a second. But at the same stage, he didn't jump very well. And you'd say that his Neron, his number one asset of his whole novice chase and open chase career, has been his jumping. I don't know. I think they're slightly trying to reinvent the wheel the way they're riding him at the moment. Is he not a strong staying 2-miler? Just get him bowling out. You don't have to make all. In a champion chase, Editor de Gite's going to bring you along. But just sit on his tail. And if that had happened even in the Clarence House, if he sat directly on Editor de Gite's tail, he's already got 6 lengths in hand on Edwardstone. And that could happen again in a champion chase, because I don't think they're going to mix up the riding on Edwardstone. I think he'll be held onto again. In regards to him, I know, I think we're just in a situation where we're probably going to agree to disagree on this horse. I was very disappointed once he got up in that race, jumping the last. He passed us by. We were near enough the Arkle bar. And you're thinking he's going to go on and win a length and a half cozy, and he's been done out by Editor de Gite. I wouldn't be maybe quite as forgiving as you are.
I would definitely be forgiving. I think they'll actually come on for the run. His confidence will improve. I think looking back on it, the reason why Tom Cannon probably dropped him out was to get a confidence boost into him. I think if they looked at it, I'm not sure he'd have been 100% revved up. They may have looked at what happened with Shishkin last year and thought, if we go there 90-95% and give him a good confidence ride, finish 2nd or 3rd, and then go to the festival and come on for it, that'll be there. I think he found himself in a position to win, and maybe just fitness told, and that's why he didn't go past. I would personally see it that way. The following race was over 2.5 miles, and Il Rodotto wouldn't stay. He wouldn't stay. Fugitive came alongside, went in front at one point, but I thought this was an absolutely brilliant ride from Harry Cobden. A bit gutted that Paul Nicholls has mentioned the Topham with him, although I get it, it's a bigger pop than the plate. But I would have liked to see this horse go to Cheltenham.
Yeah, I think so, especially given he's been running near on every second week at Cheltenham. He's becoming a bit of a fan favourite. Look, we ended up both being you were probably stronger on the horse than I was, but I thought he had a good chance, and especially actually, I know it sounds strange for a horse that's shaped like a non-stayer, but once Harry Cobden bucked out near on in front at the start, you're there going, they clearly fancy this horse to a certain extent.
I agree, especially as how in the video I think I said they're going to change tactics and maybe drop him in.
Drop him in last.
and when he bucked out, I thought that's either a very bold statement, he does stay, he's just quite tricky and the cheek pieces work, or it's a recipe for disaster, he's going to be beaten after 10 fences. Yeah, very.
It worked a little bit like Hitman at Haydock, though. If you don't let the horse see anyone else, then he may not have to wonder about getting by them. I think the race, to a certain extent, kind of cut up in behind. I'd be keeping a very strict eye on Phoenix Way, who was given a pretty non-robust ride.
Ultima?
Yeah, I think so. He's just one of these funny horses, though, Josh, because I think we've done our dough on him a few times over 3 miles before, where he's got there swinging and doesn't really find much. I think he's like a 2.6, 2.7 horse. Like, he's really hard to place, but I don't think he was off a jot, if I'm being brutally honest, and ran a pretty nice race. Il Ridotto was very good. Fugitive has ran a very solid race, but he's also tricky. He kind of hung into Il Ridotto and maybe threw the race away to a certain extent.
The one disappointment of the day, I was hoping for fireworks from Protectorate. I thought he'd really stamped down a Gold Cup claim. Dan Skelton came out today and said that he didn't have him ready. He thought he might go there 90%, 95% and get away with it. That's not going to happen at the top level, especially with horses that needed to prove a point to be in a Gold Cup picture. One of those horses was definitely a Hoisin-Yor, who, coming down the hill when Protectorate was swinging, I wouldn't have wanted to lay much bigger than 1 to 2. Protectorate won the race, and I definitely would have given you 25 to Hoisin-Yor. And then suddenly he just found. This horse's engine is ridiculous. And you know what? I'm Brave Man's Game's biggest fan, like many would know. I actually think a Hoisin-Yor is the best chance a British have got of winning the Gold Cup. I think that he will stay the extra furlong. He'll love a really strong gallop. He'll love. It's just a case of if his jumping is like on average, his jumping is 4 out of 10. If that's 7, he's got a chance of filling the frame. Obviously, I personally feel if Galopin Des Champs stays and jumps well, I think he'll win, and I do think he'll stay. But Hoisin-Yor best of the British, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it was a good performance. It was a very good performance. I think you can give a whole pat on the back to Ruth Jefferson and her team as well for Sounds Russian, who just continues to improve and ran a stormer of a race. I suppose they'll probably go to the Gold Cup. Look, I don't think he's going to do much in that, but he ran very well. Yeah, I don't know with the Hoisin-Yor because I can't get him right. I really can't. He has my pants down as a horse at this stage. And the problem is you've gone into Gold Cups in the past with similar type horses. He doesn't, to a certain extent, he gives me slight Champ vibes in terms of the engine, the potential, but just not the jumping. And I just that 4 or 5 out of 10 in a Gold Cup is just not going to cut the mustard.
No, I completely agree.
And you're taking it on chance. And I know you get the odd album photo that suddenly puts in a 7 out of 10 round and you win the race. I would just be very wary that he could be out of the race after a mile. Not necessarily that he's fallen, but he's just made a few mistakes and he's in an irretrievable position. As for Brave Man's Game, on the other hand, is exactly the opposite for my money. I think he'll jump into the race, he'll travel into the race, and you're probably going to be in a situation where you'd be clasping onto a ticket of Brave Man's Game at 4 out, but will he actually go and do anything? Kind of the pressure cooker will tell that. As for this is the type of horse that could near on tail himself off and plug on and somehow finish 4th.
Yeah, no, it is tricky. I know we did our Gold Cup order, I think, on last week's video. I think mine would change ever so slightly now he's done that. I thought it was good. Moving on to the Cleve Hurdle and Paisley Park. Didn't run his race again. I was on Dashwood Drasher, and when Paisley Park was beaten, I thought, here we go. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, the French horse is getting up. No, don't tell me any French horse is going to win. And the eyes were drawn. Gold Tweet went and won impressively. He's not entered in the Stayers Hurdle, but I would imagine potentially JP McManus might get his checkbook out and buy the horse. And if he does, I'd imagine the supplement fee won't be too much of a hassle for him.
No, well, I don't think JP is short of a few bob to supplement a horse, to be fair. And if he does go and buy this horse, I was a little bit on the wind-up standing next to you for this race because you were cleaning up throughout the card. And I thought Dasher Drasher was going to win turning in as well. But then I started giving a few LAs. And suddenly this French horse won on the Scooby, though. Like, I don't know what to make of it because he's come over. Now, I'm no French form expert by any stretch, but, well, no, ifs and buts. But at the same stage, he didn't seem to have even that great French form. He wasn't even like one of these horses that you're there going, oh, this is a proper horse and you've got to look out for him. It just seemed like they were near on there for a day out and he's gone and won the race easy. I don't know what that tells you about the English staying division. People will know my cynical side of the whole fanfare about good old PP, and yet again, you know, when people really need him, he doesn't seem to produce. Like he'll now go back to the stairs and will go off 16, 20 to 1 and probably will plug on to be third again and run a much better race.
Yeah, he doesn't do it for me. The only time I got him right was in the Cleve Hurdle, before he bombed out in the stairs, and I think it was 5-4, and I've lost far too much money on that horse. Look, I don't think we've seen a Stayers Hurdle winner in this race. That being said, the race is terrible at this point because there's just so many in it.
Well, see, the thing is, you can't, like, as much as I don't believe it either, you cannot categorically say that this horse couldn't win a Stayers because it's that bad.
I would agree, and I'd even go to the extent where I do think in a very weak Stayers Hurdle, Dasher Drasher could fill a place.
Well, he's likely to run his race. Like, he puts his head down, he keeps trying. Oh, look, if he wins a Stayers Hurdle, it really is in the pits.
Rock My Way was a good winner of the Ballymore. Frank's the form of We've All Been Caught, who he finished second to at Cheltenham in a maiden hurdle on New Year's Day. Very good. Not sure the festival. I think that's a couple of steps up.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're more than entitled to go, and I suspect knowing the owner and the fact that he's training the horses himself and owning them, he may as well run this horse at Cheltenham in either the Ballymore or the Bart. I wouldn't give him much chance, to be honest. I didn't think it was a great race. There's a very good horse in Henry II, but it hasn't come out all the time, and he looked a really tricky ride, and wouldn't surprise me if he gets the Il Rodotto cheek pieces on next time out, because he was wandering about a little bit under pressure down the hill. You thought you were potentially in with a winning slip, and he kind of went nowhere, and given the way that the form seems to have been given a pretty decent nudge, with obviously Maximilian winning up in the River Don, it was a pretty average effort, I'd have thought, in the end.
He's a tricky one. Love the horse. And I'm always looking for the next Paul Nicholls Corto Star novice chaser. I think he might be more of a Badger Beers down the line, that type of horse.
That's a harsh statement.
Not sure he's up to
Badger Beers.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's up to grade one company. Hacker de Places made it a treble on the card for Paul Nicholls in the last. I think the one that I took out from it was Picard, who could run in a county hurdle. Dan Skelton obviously has won the race a couple of times before. I think he would be of interest. Did you take anything else out of that race?
No, a bit irritating, to be honest, because I thought Hacker de Place may be looking at kind of larger targets ahead, and as a result, if they'd come third or fourth on the weekend, they'd be very happy with it. He was clearly a well-handicapped horse going into the race, and just got him on the wrong day, unfortunately. Punctuation was disappointing, I thought. I thought he'd run an awful lot better than he did. History Bear type of horse that might win a race at the April Cheltenham meeting. I'd have thought he'd be a horse for that.
Moving over to Naas, and the big talking point in the first race was horses that could go for a National Hunt chase. The Devil's Coachman got the better of Ramillies in the steward's room. Chemical Energy, very disappointing. Never liked the horse, and was pretty happy to see him not be in this, because he won a 3-runner Mickey Mouse race at Cheltenham at the start of the season. Everyone's putting him up, and if you just look back at his hurdles form and what he's actually achieved over fences, there's nothing at all.
No, not particularly. And if you're trying to grasp a positive out of that run at Naas on Sunday, you're more forgiving than me. And you well know I'm a forgiving man. But I thought it was a deplorable run in a lot of respect. More so even just the way he jumped. He jumped absolutely hopeless. The Devil's Coachman's a good type of horse. Horse I've always liked. I don't think he'll go to the festival. Needs soft ground. I think he'll stay over here, try and pick up a Grade 1 prize or run in a Grade 1, Grade 2 races over 3 miles. He's just a hard horse to place because he does need that softer ground. Ramillies, he probably ran a better race than I gave him credit for. I think it perhaps, looking at it in certain ways, may open up a market that we may be touching on later.
Echoes in Rain won the Grade 3. She was pretty impressive doing so.
Yeah, she was. At the end of the day, though, probably a race that I wouldn't be taking on form, maybe overly literally. Bob, unfortunately, is just not the horse he was.
No, she won in a similar way to Epatante at Doncaster, actually, both given similar rides and went and won very impressively. How would you sit with both of those going up in trip for the Mares' Hurdle?
I think Echoes in Rain is just, she just does things wrong a lot of the time. And I know people are saying, oh, she's racing a lot more conservatively now. She's obviously relaxing into her races a bit better. But at the same stage, she went to Cheltenham last year and she got very lit up, and she's going to take an awfully good ride to win the Mares' Hurdle over 2.5 miles, I believe, because you're near on going to have to strangle the life out of her to get her to settle and to get home. Epatante's the class horse in the Mares' Hurdle, best horse in the race. I would have doubts at 2.5 miles at Cheltenham, personally. And I think perhaps her stablemate is a better chance for the Mares' Hurdle. Now, I know there's been talk that she may go elsewhere. I don't think she will. But as I say, Bob Ollinger's not the horse he was. Meet and Greet needs a lot further than 2 miles, and Cashback was second. I saw one or two comments on one of the question things we've put out saying about Meet and Greet perhaps for the Stayers Hurdle. He won't run. Oliver McKiernan hasn't had a runner at the Cheltenham Festival for the last 10-15 years, and he won't have one with Meet and Greet. He's the type of horse that may rock up and may run a good race in the 3 mile Grade 1 at Punchestown end of the season.
Willys in the bumper, and we saw a good one of Willys in the bumper. Western Diego, now second favourite for the champion bumper. He ran over 2 miles and 3 furlongs and looked pretty impressive. Won on the bridle.
Yeah, he did. And I know these things can always be a little bit overhyped, I suppose. The price probably isn't massively brilliant given what he's done. But geez, I loved this horse, Josh. I thought he was absolutely mustard. And the horse he beat was obviously second behind It's For Me the last day for Richard O'Brien. I think it's probably fair enough to assume that horse has come forward for that race. Will Do was third. He's not a bad benchmark behind Factor File at Christmas time. Was second in a maiden hurdle before that. And he's won on the absolute Harry Houdini. I was very, very, very taken.
Where would you sit with him in It's For Me?
I'd prefer him.
Interesting.
I've got a real thing, and I don't know why it is, but it's a little thing that I've always liked with Willie Mullins horses. I really like those horses that win bumpers over 2-3 and 2-4, because I think champion bumper is a staying race. You do need to stay carefully selected. Won a 2 mile 4 bumper, just got touched off like that. Appreciated did similar, got touched off like that. They have a good habit of running very well. Wouldn't surprise me. This horse looks uncomplicated. You could ride him near on from the front, and he won't be stopping. A
couple of questions then before we have our Ante Post selections. What did you think of Spanish Harlem's run behind 3-Card Bragg? People are pointing towards the Martin Pipe here.
Yeah, I can see it, because he could run. I think he could easily run in maybe a Michael Purcell next week.
Run again?
Yeah, he does need to run once again, I believe, to qualify for the Martin Pipe. I'd be interested in him. He'd be on a short list, definitely. I think it would be remiss of him not to be. I'd want to see maybe a tiny bit more from him next time out. I know they're not trying to burst the bank from a handicapping perspective. I thought Heskin gave the winner a pretty canny ride in that race. But I don't know with Spanish Harlem, to be honest. It'll be one of those, if he goes and wins the Martin Pipe, it was staring at you square in the eye. If he's a bit of a bust, you kind of go, well, he was absolutely beaten up by 3-Card Bragg. So I would probably be leaning towards the first option rather than the second.
4-horse Festival Acca. We've been asked, do we have a 4-horse Festival Acca? I'm going to go first.
Okay.
If I was to back 4 horses I think will win at the festival, price not included, but we're not going to include Constitution Hill. I think Delta Work will win the cross country.
Yep.
I think Facile Vega will win the Supreme. I think Alaho will win the Ryanair. And I think Vorsley will win the Fox Hunters. That'd be my four-leg acca.
Very good. Very good. Well, my 4-1, I do like in a fourfold, I do like throwing in one at a price. But at the same stage, the 3 ones that I would like at a shorter price, Delta work for the cross country. I think he has to be near on all of them, to be honest. I'm going to keep the flag flying with Appreciated in the Turners. He's a much shorter price now. So hopefully that's where he goes. I'm going to also be controversial here and going to stick by my guns and put a Nergamine in for the Champion Chase, now at a very nicely backable price at near on 3-1. And my 4th one is going to be the one that will boost up the odds, and it will be said in around 5 minutes' time.
Very, very interesting. One quick update for you. Gerard Colombe has been entered in the Scilly Isles at Sandown this weekend. We will have a video previewing the weekend later on. He is going to run. I think he's an intended runner. They're going to send him over, and I think he's currently 3-1. He certainly won't be that on the day if he does turn up. But now it is time for our Cheltenham Ante Post picks. I'm going to let you take the floor with yours.
Well, I don't think it will come as much of a surprise. A horse I've talked about a fair bit, and obviously we went into the start of the season, and people will know the road I went on with Bardenstown Lad last year, and I suppose it hasn't worked out for him over fences this season. He's been awfully disappointing. He's back in a Pertemps qualifier this weekend at Musselburgh coming. But at the same stage, there has been a horse in the same yard that I think has excelled over fences, and it's Malar Mission. And I just believe that this National Hunt Chase still has the capabilities of cutting up massively and maybe not ending up being that great a race. I think it's very easy to see why Gallard de Menil is favoured. If he runs, I'd be lying to myself. I'd be extremely, extremely concerned about him. I think he's got all you need, and just because it's not that great a race, I don't think there's going to be that many runners. He's going to have a huge chance. That being said, the rest of the market I think is up for grabs. To be honest, you've got Chemical Energy, who's completely burst his books. I would fancy taking on Ramillies over 3-6 in a novice chase. Personally speaking, I don't think he's got endless amounts of stamina. You have other horses in there. Churchstone Warrior, not a bad horse. I'd be very, very shocked if he won a National Hunt Chase. I'd be shocked if he ran in the race. Then you have Malar Mission, and then you're on to Hidden Heroics and the lads. And quite frankly, I think Hidden Heroics would need to start tomorrow to have a chance of winning the race. So I just think he's in there at 12-1, and he's 12-1 readily available. I just don't believe how he's 12-1, personally.
Okay.
I know you may disagree, and maybe it's because it's John McConnell, maybe because who's going to ride him. I would love nothing more than to get a news bulletin in a week or two's time and Barry O'Neill's been booked, and you're there going, oh, now. Because I think it would only take a bulletin like that and he would suddenly be an 8-1 shot. But his jumping is getting much better. I know he was second in that awful race at October, but he's clearly not himself. Went back, had a wind up, then finished third behind Must Be Obeyed at Punchestown, who's gone out and won since. Chantruse was second. That was a nice pipe opener. That was a bit like the run you're telling me Edwardstone had. Just a nice little confidence booster. He was held up off the pace. And then he went out from the front the last day at Navan and jumped like an absolute bunny rabbit and put a decent field away to the sword. He stays forever. He's a pretty good jumper. I just don't believe how he's 12-1. And if Gallard de Menil doesn't run in the race, I think it's his to lose.
Very, very strong on John McConnell. Again.
Yeah, I know. And people will say I'm being stupid, and I know I've got it completely wrong on Wrexham. And I know people say I back these horses blind. I don't, but I do believe this horse has got a good chance.
Look, I can't say anything. I've put up so many Gordon Elliott horses, and I'm not going to stop now. I do quite like this. This is a bit of a swipe. This one, I quite like the Goffer at 25-1 for the Kim Muir. I know we've mentioned him, but I just think that run at Warwick, although he didn't jump very well, I thought it was very eye-catching. I thought it was eye-catching that he was entered in the Novices Handicap Chase at Cheltenham this weekend, didn't run, got 144. He gets into the Kim Muir if he's unchanged, which I think he will be. And we're trying to explain a bit of backclass with him. Is he just another one of these Gordon Elliott 5 or 6 that are going to run in the Kim Muir and have a chance that everyone's going to get on? And I just think the Goffer could be slightly different. I think he does have back class. I think he's better than the horses that he ran in the race last year. And for example, I think his win at Thurles, I think the second place was Churchstone Warrior. And on his previous run, he was 2 lengths behind Devil's Coachman. And on his next run, he was 7 lengths behind Gallard de Menil in the Grade 1 at Leopardstown at Christmas. I think that proves that the Goffer is slightly above average. 144, I think, is very fair if he remains on that. And I am dicing with fire a little bit here. He might get put up a couple of pounds if they reassess. I doubt it, which is why I'm going to take a punt that the Goffer 25 to 1 for the Kimura. I think he will run in the race if he gets in, and I think he's definitely got a squeak.
Yeah, no, I'd agree 100% with you on that. To be honest, I've liked the horse for the race. I know we've both we've muted at it over the last couple of episodes, and I think it's obviously a bit of a swipe before we know the official weights and stuff like that. But at the same stage, do you not just see Jamie Codd riding this horse and it goes off 4 or 5 to 1? You know, it could end up being the wise guy's horse. And I'd be very proud to call you the original wise guy.
Well, I'd be the first one I've ever been called that.
Unlike perhaps my good old friend Smoking Gun last year, who was a handicapper and a proper handicapper at that. This is the type of horse that could end up running well in nationals in future, I believe. And he's maybe got a little bit more improvement, a little bit more life in the legs left. And some of his form would suggest that.
There we go. We do hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please hit that like button. If we could hit 800 likes on this video, that would be absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for all the support, and thank you again for those that came up and said hello. It was a brilliant meeting. So many of you in the Feathered Fish as well. The blood is pumping for the Cheltenham Festival. We cannot wait, and we do hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you soon.